Thank you very much for coming and for accepting to be part of this panel on this great topic that is international expansion in DACH and France. So maybe before we start and kind of dive into the topics, I think we'll do a quick round of introduction from our speakers. I'll start. I'll be your host today. I'm Shiraz. I'm actually a part of French Tech Berlin, which is an organization that promotes collaboration between the tech ecosystems in France and in Germany, especially in Berlin. So we organize different events, and some of them are lunch talks like today, where we invite actually like experts on specific topics, and then we discuss with them, and we'll try to give room for maybe 10 or 15 minutes of Q&A before the end. And apart from that, I'm chief of staff at Hotjar, and before that I used to work at Malt, a freelancer marketplace, which is a French scale-up, and I handle the international expansion there, which is also why I'm super passionate about the topic and happy to be here with you. Maybe we'll start with Celia.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Celia Maury, I'm French. I've been living and working in Germany since 10 years, something like that. I started my career in Munich, and then I was part of the launching team of Doctolib in Germany from 2016. And since 2019, I've been working as a go-to-market consultant for French or foreign startups or scale-ups who want to expand to Germany, and sometimes with internal growth, sometimes with external growth. But yeah, that's basically what I do. And very happy to be here today, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Celia. Martin, do you want to go?
Yeah, with pleasure. Good afternoon, everyone. So Martin Huegli, I'm based out of Munich in Germany, working for Back Market. Back Market is a French online marketplace for refurbished electronics that has grown rapidly since 2014 and expanded not just in Europe, but also internationally. We're currently active in 16 different markets, and I have the pleasure to oversee the German, Austria, Netherlands markets for Back Market. I have a history of kind of split between e-com and sales, you could say. So I used to spend a lot of time at Amazon, more on the B2C side. And then I also managed sales teams across the US and Europe. And I'm now in the fortunate situation to bring both aspects, hopefully, you know, in a good way, positive way, to Back Market. Pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you, Martin. Jeremie, do you want to go?
Yes, so Jeremie, I'm the general manager for N26 in France and Benelux. I believe everyone here has N26, so I won't explain what it is. I joined N26 6 years ago, at the time where it was a small German startup. So we're also leading the way internationally and building the blueprints internationally. And previously, I was also working at Burger King in Germany to launch the French market. So I have some track record in doing B2C launch between France and Germany.
All right, thank you. Interesting. Alexander.
Yes, hi, Alex, and thank you for inviting me to this panel. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So I'm currently working as a startup program lead at OVHCloud, and OVHCloud is a French company. Probably most of them know OVH, but yeah, we are a European leading cloud provider, hosting provider, and also offer startups a specific program to use our services. And yeah, so I'm coming from the startup ecosystem, and before I joined OVH last year, I used to be an ecosystem builder in the startup community, and worked with hundreds of startups, especially in the area of Hessen, help them to find their first customers and get a foot into the market.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Great to have you all. So maybe the first question that usually comes to the mind of companies is why should they actually expand to Germany or to France, vice versa, like if we talk about German companies. So maybe you could give us a bit of a thought on your startups, actually, on the companies you work at. You know, why did they launch in France, for example, for N26? Maybe we can start with you, Jeremie.
Sure. So I think two things. First, like actually the DNA and like the way like the company was built, like was already thought through to be international. Like when I joined, like early on, everything was already in English. Everything it was like European regulations. So in the mindset, somehow in the founder's head that they wanted to go internationally. Still, true anecdote. There was no job offer, so I applied at the time where there was just a German company. I told them, "Hey guys, I've launched. I love working in France. I've sold banks. I'm an engineer. The day you want to grow internationally, please call me back." And this is where actually, like, one way or another, I had them through pushing internationally. So also can also come from half from the inside, but also half from the outside with like the right opportunity. I was the same at Burger King. At some point, if you have the right partner, like it can also come from the outside as well.
Okay, and what about you, Celia? What do you see from French companies wanting to expand in Germany?
I would say the first thing is, of course, the macroeconomic explanation. So Germany is basically the biggest market in Europe now, first leading European economic power. And it's always a wish from French startups or scale-ups to build a French-German company in order to be #1 in Europe. And then in order to face the giants of US, China, or India, for example, which wouldn't be the case or not necessarily with Benelux or with Switzerland, but since or once you have Germany, then you can also do Switzerland pretty quickly, I would say. So I would say that's the first thing. And of course, in the healthcare, you have a very different structure of medical offices, for example. You have much more assistants per doctor, and the people are more like healthcare freaks in Germany. Sorry for the German people hearing us, but you have much more appointments at doctors' practices, for example. So that's also a microeconomic explanation. But I would say for an article I wrote for a few weeks, I made a small in-house qualitative study of with former customers and prospects. And I saw that the motivation #1 for the overwhelming majority of them was that they were initially motivated by the scalability potential of their business model, and they wanted to test it outside from the domestic borders. So for me, for my clients, it has been really the first thing. And then, of course, revenue, and in order to be credible at the international level, prepare the next round and so on. But the first motivation, and I'm also very curious to hear if it was also the case for the others, but it was really to check the scalability potential of the model.
Okay, yeah, interesting. And what about you, Martin? Because in e-commerce, maybe it's a bit different. Maybe it's a bit like N26 from the start. You are actually international.
You kind of built for international, but you know, one important aspect, if you're a venture-backed company and you have to demonstrate growth, right? You have to demonstrate that your model is portable and scalable. And naturally, it's part of the story, right? Part of the story, if you want to conquer Europe and establish yourself as player #1 in Europe, you have to have Germany. And the problem is Germany's always been a beast. like there are so many anecdotes from large companies that have looked at Germany, very few that have actually succeeded. And for, pretty much every country manager, that I meet, you can go into anecdotes of how Germany is different and why it's so different and why it's so tough for companies to break into the market. It's not just the language. But yeah, naturally an e-com model is at the core, should be very scalable. At least if you're within the EU. There are, different laws in different countries, but the basics of trade are established. So you have a gateway into the additional countries. You have the same currency, which is very important. So naturally, Germany, big market, big potential. And, for many companies, it's kind of the number one or number two in Europe that they look at if they're expanding from elsewhere. Big part of the story.
And Alex, do you have maybe some insights on OVHcloud? Because I guess, since it's B2B, then the rationale is a bit different. And I guess then also the way to enter the new markets are different as well.
Yes, totally. Yeah, of course. Germany or the DACH market is very interesting for OVH, I think, because one of our DNA is that we are a European company and come with some very good USPs in terms of data sovereignty and other topics that are interesting or very important for companies, especially in Germany. And but I think we also face some big challenges in terms of it's not easy to conquer the German market in also in the B2B area. Although especially for the startup area, it's not easy because you have very big competitors here, and especially the American companies are very big in Germany already, and it's not easy for us to get a foot in here. Even if I offer a lot of free credits for startups, it's not easy.
Yeah, but then I guess this is also quite specific to your industry, I would assume, because you have already these very big players. But it's a fair point, definitely. And then I think like the kind of the logical next question would be, once you actually knew that you wanted to expand into DACH or into France, how did you actually enter those markets? Like, how did you approach the entrance to these markets? Did you do market research? Did you identify potential, I don't know, acquisition opportunities? What were your strategies? And goes who wants to go? Because I don't want to force anyone. Or Celia, what did you see from your customers or the people you worked with?
Yeah, so basically it's first of all, I would say go, no go. So we got money, we want to expand, which markets are coming first. And this first step is very important, because you have to check, okay, should we or do we have to adapt the product for the market? Do we have to adapt the business model? Are there some legal barriers? For example, in healthcare, you can find many legal barriers, and of course, are there some competitors in the country? And then I would say there are two different things that you have to go parallel. So in parallel, it's of course a sales and HR strategy, product adaptation, but also in parallel to that, it's about mapping and connecting with your potential partner, but also prospects. It's a prospect identification, and also in the healthcare industry, for example, to be really connected to KOL. That's very, very important at the beginning in order to be able afterwards to make a first use case and so on. So for me, that would be a little bit the storyboard, I would say.
And would you actually recommend health tech companies to first identify these KOLs, kind of research the market before recruiting and doing the whole adaptation?
Totally, because for me, especially in the healthcare market, it's like you have to see your target group, you have to connect with them, to meet them, to make product demo and so on, to be able to hear, okay, does it make sense for them? What are the pain points and so on? And for me, the KOL people, they are like the door opener for all the prospects and the very important people for you. So yes, definitely, I would say, okay, just go to the people, connect. Of course, it's not so easy, but you have possibilities through other people to connect with the right person for you, and then speak with them in order to check if pain points are here and how you can address them and so on. Yeah.
Makes sense. Alex, you had your mic off. Maybe you wanted to add something?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Celia, especially when it comes to finding the right person that helps you to enter a market. For me, it's currently like a similar situation, even if I have a broader market. I really have to, I mean, our products are very scalable and are fixed, so I cannot change our products. So I have to educate people about our products, and I have to educate them about why are we better than our competitors. And I really I'm currently trying to work with some good partners that already know our USPs, and to build trust in the startup ecosystem for our solutions. So this is the current thing I'm currently working on.
Okay.
Something I can add. I think so. When you look into like entering a new market, obviously there's the mass, like the demographic that everybody can do, but it's still important to understand like, hey, how many customers, actually what is the P&L that we can drive from there, because some of the markets are smaller, but probably more, like Netherlands is probably more profitable than Portugal, like when you do this kind of mass. So it's important to keep that in mind. But I think fast forward and like taking the learning, it's really having people on the ground who can explain you what will need to happen, because like if you want to go in Germany, you need to have like Germans, whether you hire them or you don't, but like having people being capable to explain you, okay, this is what will need to happen. I can give you a concrete example. Even until to now, so I'm only speaking to the French people, I keep explaining to the founders what is a livret A in France. You need to go on it, like explain what is the local needs, and that you only get that by like having like local people who understand, okay, what are the local, not a French person like living in Germany who's never lived in France. You need people on the ground who really understand what are the behavior, what are like the must have, to make this happen, not just like from a technical standpoint, but really high level view. Okay, if you want to be successful, what is it going to look like, i.e. what you're going to need to deliver, not how, but what needs to happen so that somehow you will be successful in this market. And this is pretty critical, actually very cheap to do that before like starting the overall process.
Yeah, true. Very important to do that. Martin, is it how also back market kind of started in the DACH region?
No, marketplaces are very simple, compared to a lot of other business models. So once you have a pipe, kind of what you got to do is you got to put that e-com website on a separate domain. You got to have local T&Cs, and pretty much you're ready to sell. And so, for us, it's always been relatively easy to open markets, and then just see what happens. We tap into consumer pools that are available. We market, we have a CAC, we have an LTV, and as long as that relationship is positive, we're good to go, and we push. So I think, for us, the real trouble started a little bit after we scaled. And, once you enter a market and becomes more competitive, that's when I think you start to struggle. and you will have to figure out what the recipe needs to be to succeed in a crowded market, right? And that's what happened to us. Is that initially it was smooth sailing, and then boom, everything crashed, and we thought, okay, this is not going to plan. We kind of have to troubleshoot that, and then you look deeper under the hood. But the baseline for a marketplace, it's relatively straightforward if you have built for scale at the beginning, to port that model to other markets and just see what happens. And that's how we started.
Okay. And actually, when you started, was it an option to pull back from DACH? Because, like a lot of companies, because I also helped a few startups to implement in other markets, and they were always asking me, okay, I'm going to test and learn from like launching in some markets. So do soft launches, as we can call it. So was it an option as well for back market to kind of test, like put a feet, in the water, and if nothing would go well, then you would pull back?
Not really, no.
Okay.
We're very determined, to be the number one player in the market. And we've very clearly set ourselves up as the number one over the last 2 years. And we're determined to continue the course. And it ties back to what I mentioned about the story. It's really important for us to, call Europe our home base, and Germany is just an essential part of it. The big question is just, how much are you willing to spend, right? How much are you willing to invest? And as you go more global, look at some of the other companies, N26 for sure. You will have competing P&Ls, and you will start to look at arbitrage. For us, for example, the US is probably the biggest growth market, heaviest on investment. So how do you balance that investment? I think that is a big question for a lot of companies that are starting to expand internationally across multiple continents. And how do you find the right level of investment, the right level of efficiency that gets you to where you want to be, while still enabling flexibility to grow the portfolio across other markets?
Yeah, definitely. And then, so maybe like so just one thing for the audience, like the people listening to us, if you have any questions that come to your mind, you can go to the Q&A like box at the bottom of the screen. So feel free to put your questions, and we'll make sure we answer them. So then maybe I want to, again, I'm kind of following the funnel, I would say, or the process of launching in a new market. So the next step would be, actually, once you launch, what were the main learnings that you had from the different launches that you did? Again, we're kind of focusing on DACH and or France, depending on your company. But I think it would be interesting to have some of the main learnings you've gathered. Who wants to start?
I can jump real quick.
Yeah.
I think if you look at back market, we're a B2C marketplace. So it's really important to know and understand how consumers make decisions. I think this is where some of the key learnings are. A lot of it is centered around trust, but it's also, price sensitive. The market is very, very price sensitive. Depends a lot on competition. Big part of, where we are is also, you could call refurbished electronics some sort of a commodity. So it's very hard for consumers to understand what the differences are, why they should pay more for a device, which, is essentially the same on, another platform. And that's where we invested. That's also what I think drove our success, is to understand these decision-making patterns, try and experiment. And, in turn, we've been able to kind of innovate for the entire platform. So I think it's good to have a challenging market such as Germany, and then equip the teams with flexibility and to a certain degree autonomy to crack the market. And as you crack it, you can apply it to other markets, which we've been able to do successfully. And that's the nice thing, not just about Germany. You know, the US is another market which is probably 2 to 3 years ahead in terms of just internet time or you know, e-com time. And so if you want to grow in that market, you need to equip teams with flexibility to test, learn, so some degree of autonomy. These are the core learnings for us. And I think it's one of the hardest things for a French company to do, is to let, you know, to let Germans be Germans and do German stuff. So I, you know, when I came in 2.5 years ago, we had a bunch of German people in the team, and they were working on, you know, various teams, all the way from, you know, marketing, customer support, a lot of just German speaking German natives, most of them located in France, but they all voiced opinions about, you know, our presence in Germany, our you know, our setup, all the way down to language we used, but nobody really listened. And that was the interesting thing, you know, for me. And then, you know, when I came in and I said it, suddenly, you know, it was a different thing, which is too bad, you know. So I think key learning for me, or key advice for anyone expanding, is yes, you know, you shouldn't, you cannot scale if you tailor individual markets, you know, to all of their specific needs, but you need to equip teams with autonomy and flexibility to test and experiment, because those wins that you will deliver, you can apply to other markets. And Germany is a very good testing ground for this.
Yeah, super interesting, and definitely it's a challenge, especially. So was Germany the first market where back market expanded? I don't remember. No,
Actually,
okay.
no. The obvious candidates, you know, Belgium was way before. Spain was also before, and Germany was a close follower.
Okay.
So the second wave, so to say.
All right, because it's always hard also when you expand for the first time to know which level of autonomy you should give to the new team, because you need to kind of rearrange a bit the organization actually. So that's also a challenge. Who wants to add their insights on the topic? Jeremie.
I can, and then I'm pretty sure in the follow-up question we'll see more like how do you organize afterward. But I think one of the key learning I can have is like at the end of the day you have like resources constraints. Like for us it has always been tech, but like at the end of the day you have resources constraints, and you make sure that when you expand you have a proper governance on how you're gonna make trade-off, or you can allocate some resources rightfully. Because what I've seen across the board, if you want to go everywhere, that's super cool, but then at the end of the day it's the same team, or like you always have like the theory of operation, you're always going to have bottleneck, and you need to make sure you have the right governance to make sure you're capable to process that beforehand, not after you've launched and then you have competing fight like internal, which is like you lose time, energy, and so on. So you need to be very clear beforehand, like how you're gonna do those trade-offs. But also, I think one of the learning we have also, having been in the US and left the US, we realized we didn't have enough resources to go there. From like the technical constraint was there. So I think trying to fast forward and try to understand really, and again going into like the model where you need more autonomy, that's also fair. That's how we launched like Brazil, much more autonomous, but you need to be very mindful of your own constraints and own resources that you will need to go internationally, and having the governance that goes with that is like super critical. Whether it's a small or big market, you need to be to acknowledge what will need to happen beforehand.
Definitely. Celia, you wanted to share something, yes?
Yeah, maybe just to add two or three things. Of course, do not underestimate the recruitment, but maybe we will speak about it later. And it was already mentioned when, how, and how to have your team. But also, for example, in the healthcare system, it's a big learning for my clients to see, okay, what about the product adaptation? We see in Germany we have to do it, but actually, if you can anticipate and dedicate, take really bandwidth, also the band passant, for the adaptation of your product in advance in order to anticipate and to be able, when you decide and when you can go, when you can really do that, then you will have your product maybe not ready, but much ready than if you don't anticipate and dedicate time and take bandwidth to that. So that's a big learning for many clients of mine. And maybe another thing is really time and trust. I know time is money, but time is also trust. And in Germany, I spoke about KOL, but it can be maybe the others will be on my side or not. But for me, it's really important to take time to build trusted relationships, because when a startup is like, okay, in 2 months we will be a big player in Germany, I'm always like, oh, it takes some time, and this time is not just, okay, see what happens, but really to build relationships, because German people need to know you, need to know your product in detail. They are very factual people, and if you want then to have a good relationship, you have to build this trust, and it takes time. So yes, time is money, but time is also trust. And for me, I see many clients at the beginning, they're like, okay, go, and then they see that it needs this time and this kind of relationships.
And do you actually think, so this question is for all of you, but do you think that this trust issue or trust topic is specific to healthcare, or is it in all industries?
So from my point of view, it's spread on all industries, especially in the B2B area. You really have to build the trust for your services, for your solutions, and for yourself to be a valid player.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
100%. You know, Germans are not the types to jump on any kind of new opportunity, and might work in the US, but it certainly doesn't work in Germany. It takes a lot of time on the B2B side, on the personal side, but also on the B2C side. Just from our perspective, building a brand is then a brand is kind of the expression of trust amplified to measurable levels.
Yeah.
Very, very, very tough. Very tough. And it just I agree, it takes time.
And actually, Jeremie, because you have the other side, like you have a German company going to France. Do you also see that it's very important to build this trust in France?
I mean, it's important because we're a financial institution. So by design, like if you put your money in something that you trust, so this one is for sure mandatory. Surprisingly, like French people, they see what is coming from Germany as solid as a German car. So like the German banks are actually not, I mean, it's a different story, but at the end of the day, it's very funny. Just because we're German, they picture us as like a German car, therefore it needs to be solid. And that's also something you can leverage when you go from Germany to France.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. All right, and then because we actually touched upon the topic, maybe we can go to the topic of the organization of the team. And I think within this topic there are two actually different topics. One would be on the recruitment side, so like who do you hire in the market you launch and when, because yeah, I've had actually some experience with that which didn't really go well, but also some which went well. So it's super critical. And the other question is actually how do you build your team, and how do you transform also your internal team? And to be more specific on that question, the topic that always comes back is do you have localized functions versus centralized functions? And I think this is maybe a topic where you can bring some insights on how you managed to do that, and also what were your learnings again on that. Who wants to start?
At the risk of always being the first, don't want to steal too much time from the others, because this is a super fascinating topic. I prefer to stay on the organization side, because I think recruiting is so specific to the function that you're recruiting and the level. It has its many flavors, and it's very hard to cover. But in terms of functional versus local, I think it's it's always the same, like you've mentioned. And what I've seen is you go local, and then you go functional, and you specialize.
Yeah.
And I think, and then you go back, because you're like, okay, this is too functional, we're missing the local piece, and it's always a calibration. So I would see it really as an evolution where you're at the very first step, you're kind of functional. You have marketing, and they do marketing, and they go into other countries, as an example, or customer care. And then you realize, okay, there are issues, so you start to add local people responsible for parts of that function, the local within the function. And then you start to see, okay, this is not scalable. And then you move it back to functional, which I think is healthy, because you can elevate the game. As you mature, the skill sets will also be different. The skill sets after the first circle, when you're back into functional, the skill sets you have in the functional are way stronger than initially, the skill sets that you had in most cases, right? So I consider it as kind of an evolution, and a necessary one as you scale, to kind of go in between. And it's just, it can be very tricky for teams, because you shake up the entire organization. You take people out of jobs as you move them into functions. You disrupt the whole thing. You have another reorg. Many of you will know, 3-4 reorgs a year, probably. It's not unusual to have that. And so the important part here is to manage culture really well, and the transition really well, to keep everyone aligned on the same objectives and on board, which is not always possible. But I think you have to be agile. You have to, go from one into the other and find the right flavor for the, current market situation, and then evolve. It's all about evolution, and you will always ping pong between the two.
Just one follow-up question, but how do you make sure that your functional teams keep a local touch? Like that they keep being locals, like Germans, for example. Does it mean that you have like a marketing team in Germany then?
We're back to fully functional. So
Okay.
We used to have German market specialists within the marketing department, for example. But at the end of the day, you can move to performance. So a lot of what you're seeing is, as you mature, is represented in KPIs. You can track customer satisfaction. You can track conversion rates. You can track click volumes. Like all all of that you can track. And as you go into functions, the metrics become more important as there needs to be at least, one function to look at market KPIs. And that can be an isolated one for a particular market, or it can be multiple markets. But you need to look at the development of the KPI and then challenge the functional departments. There will be marketing, for example. There will be naturally, there's pressure on the KPI. There will be questions. How performant are our ads? What is our setup? Are our ads, do they work locally? So you go into an audit, which you can do with agencies or you can do with, internal teams. But, in my experience, as you move, kind of in the second iteration to functions, the KPIs become a lot more important, and they will point you to where you have deficiencies. And the function, so somebody needs to really challenge the functional teams and keep them on their toes, which I think we do really well. And then, you can really make sure that individual markets are also at a very, very high competitive level, despite not necessarily having a local person in the market, which is actually driving this.
All right. Celia, you wanted to add something?
Yes, maybe just to add some basics for the people who are hearing us, and maybe they don't know that, but when you recruit in Germany, you have to know that people are more expensive in Germany than in France for many reasons. And you also have, of course, a market with little unemployment. Now we are about 5.5 in Germany right now. So that is something that you have to know in advance, of course. And maybe something else, but you have also different mindsets now in Germany and in France. For example, in France, we have this system with Grande École, and we are basically making generalists, so people who can understand a broad range of things, people who are very adaptable, flexible, people who can have really an overview on the things. But in Germany, you have a different system, and they are making specialists, so people who are really experts in one topic. And I just wanted to say it here, because sometimes I have clients who just don't understand this kind of mindset in Germany, and why and where does it come and so on. So just wanted to add that regarding your first question. Of course, you can, before you decide to hire people in Germany, you can also hire, for example, German-speaking people in France. That's, for example, an opportunity when you just want to have a first feet in the door, as you mentioned it before. But just to be short regarding how do you manage then your team in Germany. I think it was mentioned, I don't know if it was Jeremie, I'm not sure, but someone told about it's very important to start doing everything in English. Maybe it sounds a little bit obvious, but actually it is not. And I know when I started at Doctolib 2016, we had everything in French. And for the German people, it was really complicated to understand, because they basically stayed in the background due to the language, and it was not so easy for them. So I think that's the first thing. It sounds a little bit basic, but it's very important. Also, of course, do not make any difference between careers in the domestic market or abroad. I think it's also important. And what we did at Doctolib, and it was actually pretty successful. We built French-German pairs, actually, in order to facilitate the communication, the questions, and also exchanges outside from bigger group, and it was very good for in kind of intimacy, or at least to have a reference person you can really ask anything, anytime. And for us at Doctolib, it was pretty successful. So that's maybe little things, but it was for us very, very important at the end.
And were the pairs by functions? Like
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. But and at Doctolib, like how was the organization? Was it like in Germany? Did you more or less replicate, like the organization you had in France with the salespeople, etc., or was it a bit different?
We started hiring salespeople because salespeople was a little bit like le nerf de la guerre, and after that we hired also account manager, so farming people, I would say, and after that HR people, and after that marketing people. But so at the end, yes, we can say that it was a little bit replicated, but not at the beginning. It was really step by step, and we started with salespeople, and of course it was pairs with as a pair function. But we had also, when we started to open many cities, we had also a reference person per region or per city. Okay. So we had, for example, someone from Lyon in France, and he was responsible for Berlin, and he was coming to Berlin once a month for 2-3 days, and we had really time with this person. And it was really because when you have a bigger group, it's sometimes not so easy to ask all your questions or a misunderstanding and so on. So to have really a reference person, it was very good for all of us.
All right. Jeremie?
Yes, to me, that's my last decade, so I could almost write a book about that. I think let's start in order. First, if you're a German company, you want to go in France, hire French people in Germany, or vice versa. But like if you want to go in one market, first hire people from this market in your home market. No matter what, this will be beneficial medium and long term. We'll start to understand the people, how to recruit. For instance, if you're German and you don't know what is the Grande École, you need the French people to explain that to you. So that's a very, very first step to start with. Then, obviously, maybe my learning is you need to build like a local team from the top. So you need to hire like a country manager or somebody senior enough. If you bring some, because you would think, okay, I need somebody like medium with medium seniority, but then you will build it like the right way, because somehow you need somebody who's senior but hands-on. So somebody who's going to be able to understand what are the different needs that you will need. Like in my case, like the first need was actually marketing, because we're B2C and we need to grow. In some cases, you will need probably sales, or you will need like probably legal, or like this kind of thing. So the need will come afterward, but it's much easier if you come from the top and this person will like bring the people on board. Big mistake, trying to hire the whole team at once. That's what you see from like, it was possible at the time of Uber and WeWork. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, but that's massive cost, not to say like easy to handle. And this is where what Martin was saying, you always have this mix between local and global. That's something I've lived with. It's always a balance. As a local market, you always try to balance locally. As a global function, you will always try to balance like globally. There's always like it's always like a mix between the two. The two. Still, wherever like the people are reporting to, at the end of the day, you need to have like within the global team people dedicated to the local market. I'm not managing customer service, but still in the customer service managed globally, there's people dedicated to the French market, and this one is critical. Also, one of the learning, even if everybody is reporting in the global function, truthfully, the global function only manage the global topics, and like local topics by design are priority number 2. So I'm in general like big proponent somehow to have at least dotted lines with local managers. Last big topic and big mistake people do when they expand internationally if you want to have a French general manager in France from a German company, you need to hire a German GM, because that people what they tend to forget in all the organization, home market is a home market, is not the global company. They tend to think that okay, you want to replicate the home market everywhere because it's global. It's a big mistake. I've seen that everywhere. You need to make sure if you want to go internationally, you also tend to have in mind to recruit a local leader for your home market, because as a global leader as well, you're going to focus on all those things, and you need to be able to delegate the decision making and making sure actually people are taking care of the local topics, and it's not yourself as well. I can write a book, but that's a big
No, that's a very important point. The last one, it's true that we actually tend to do that very late, I feel, in the expansion process. So that's important to keep in mind. Alex, did you want to add anything or?
I just totally agree with your point, Jeremie, because in OVH we have we have exactly that structure that you've explained before. Like we have general managers in every location and cluster, but also in our startup program team we have a global leader. But in each cluster we have startup program leaders like me or experts who are trying to work with the startups, understand their needs and the local points. So this currently works very well for us, and I totally agree with your points here.
Cool. So I actually have way more questions on that, because this is a very important topic, but unfortunately I see we only have 10 minutes left. So maybe the last question I would have for you, and then we can switch to the Q&A. It would be like, so right now we're in an economic situation which is a bit different than I guess when your companies expanded to Germany or to France. So would you see right now maybe some opportunities for companies who want to expand? If so, what advice would you give companies who want to expand right now? So it's a very broad question, because it's kind of the last closing question, and I want to try to kind of broaden a bit the topic. But if you have anything you want to share, any insights or even thoughts that you had lately, I think it would be interesting to share with the audience. Martin, yes.
I can go.
You're the brave one, because you always go first.
Look, I mean, everyone knows cash is very tight. So, the times of throwing money at the problem are kind of gone. But it's also, and clearly, the recession is weighing on consumer demand. There's just a reshaping and recalibration in the market that bears opportunity. And I think, if right now any company has a clear edge that they can ride, now is a really good time. So if you have an edge to be, more profitable at scaling, or, whatever the edge is, I think it's a very opportune time, because a lot of the traditionals are struggling. They're rebuilding, their value chains, their models, they're challenging a lot. They're refocusing, and we haven't really seen this play out quite yet. There is going to be a lot more change. There are going to be, very, very different, business models from within the players of, in the economy today. They're going to be different tomorrow, and we're just in the middle of this, process. So I would say if you have a real edge, now is the time, because you can really establish yourself for, based on that edge in the market quite rapidly, as the others just defocus, deprioritize, etc. That's the general advice that I would give, but naturally it's easier said than done.
Thank you, Martin. Celia,
yeah, maybe just to share some observation from my side. what I see, you spoke about the new market conditions and so on. What I see is really less intern growth and more cross-border M&A deals, actually, because Germany also has a much more bootstrap culture than in France. We see last year more than 200 startups, German startups, have been acquired, and that's a good, for me, a key feature to see, okay, something is happening, and also to see that that who acquired this kind of company actually more European players than American players. And that's also the first time that we saw something like that. So for me, it's really showing that something is happening. And I can also speak a little bit about the healthcare system because it's the industry I know the most. We have, since COVID, since the pandemic, we have a very fragmented market, and many startups emerge since the beginning of the pandemic. Just to give one number, you have 44 players in Germany for telehealth, 44 players. So actually consolidation is needed. And and I think that's also a good moment to do things like that, to do cross-border M&A and to say, okay, we don't have so much money, but this money maybe we can win some time, I would say, even if it's also complicated to integrate an acquisition. That would be another topic, subject, of course. But yeah, that's something that I can observe in the last months.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely there might be actually opportunities in the M&A side. Yeah. All right. Then I think we can switch to the Q&A. And Jeremie is doing advertising. All right. So there is one question actually I see, so don't be shy in the audience, like feel free to write your questions or to raise your hand. I think that's possible if you want to ask the question live. So the first one is, if and how do you differentiate within DACH between DA and Switzerland in our approach, product, investment? Do you start with all three at once? And the question is especially for B2B. So how do you approach the DACH region, which is indeed a big piece?
Okay, maybe I can start this time. I would say I already mentioned it, but for me, what I see with my clients is that Germany is really the number one in the DACH region, because it's the biggest and maybe the most important. And then Switzerland and Austria, because they are, for example, I have a client in mind. He always told me, like, okay, Austria is like another region from Germany, so maybe it's a little bit short reduced, but yeah. But for me, Germany is definitely the number one. But I'm happy to hear if it's the same for the others.
Yeah, I started with the same approach. Currently, I'm focusing most of my time on Germany and just testing, experimenting a bit in the other countries. But yeah, as you said, Germany has such a big opportunity, and especially for me in the startup area, there are lots of startups, and I'm currently, I think, focusing 95% of my time on Germany, and the rest are just some experiments and trying to figure out where I can find some opportunities in the next month or years for me.
All right. Yeah, actually just at Malt, we had exactly the same approach. It was Germany and then the rest. But at the same time, you know, like I was thinking at the time that maybe Austria, for example, would have been also a good first market, because then you can test on a smaller smaller region, I would say, and also the stakes are a bit lower. So in a way, as you were saying, Alex, you can experiment, and so maybe then you can have learnings for the bigger market, which is Germany. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought, but I think even if Austria and Germany are, can be compared to each other, I think they're not the same countries, especially when it comes to culture, and I think it can be good idea, but it's totally depending on your market, I guess, and on the way how you approach it to your customers. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, all. And I hope in the audience you had some answers to your questions, and it gave you some food for thought. And thank you, Martin, Celia, Jeremie, and Alex, for being here. Have a great day.
Thank you, Shiraz.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Shiraz.